Last Supper. And he said to them, look, there is going to be a test unto humanity of whether people will cling to an undying monotheistic faith. Whether people will continue to worship that one God, the God of Israel, the God of Isa, the God of Moses, the God of Abraham, the God of Muhammad. Whether people will continue to this, or whether there will be divergences and disputes. And I am going to be raised up to heaven. Who amongst you, my disciples, wishes to have my image put upon him and be crucified in my place and be next to me seated in paradise in the life to come? The youngest of them, he said, I want to do it. And it's as if Jesus felt that maybe he was too young for this responsibility. The other disciples hadn't put their hands up. He offered the request again. The youngest of them put his hand up. He offered the request a third and final time. The only one that put his hands up was this young disciple. And Jesus touched him, and the roof was opened, and he was raised up in a state of unconsciousness or sleep, up to God. And that young man took the form of Isa, and he was put on the cross. And people were told, as Muslims, this is our belief. People were told, this is a test from you for God. Do you believe that Isa, that the Prophet of Allah has been raised, that the Prophet of Allah will return, that he will be the Messiah? Do you have faith in this? Do you hold on to your faith or not? As Muslims, we believe that Isa shall return. In fact, you will find that in all three monotheistic faiths, there's the anticipation of the Messiah. As Muslims, our Messiah is Jesus, the return of Jesus. This is our faith. That he will come back to lead humanity, will live amongst people 40 years, as is narrated to us in the statements of the Prophet. Authentic chains of narration. يَنْزِلُ فِيكُمْ عِيسَى بْنُ مَرْيَمْ. Jesus shall descend upon you. بَيْنَ مُمَصَّرَتَيْنِ. He will be wearing, Jazakallah khair, thank you. He will be wearing two garments. وَاضِعٌ يَدَيْهِ عَلَى أَجْنِحَةِ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. He will descend from heaven being assisted in his descent by two angels. And he shall come down to you حَكَمًا عَدْلًا, who will be a governor of justice amongst all of humanity. فَيَنْزِلُ فِيكُمُ الْعَدْلِ. There will be such peace وَسَمَاحَةً on the earth that الرَّجُلْ يَمْشِي وَالْأَسَدُ لَا يُتْعِبُهُ. That a man will walk freely in the earth and he'll come near a lion or a wild beast, a wild animal, and it will not pursue him. That's the type of peace and prosperity that there will be. Tuba li'ayshin ba'd al-Masih. The Prophet of Islam says, how great will life be when Jesus returns? Tuda al-habbatu ala sakhra. You will put a seed on rock, barren rock, fatumbit, but it will flourish in vegetation. That's the barakah, the blessing that the return of Jesus brings. In that is a summary of our belief as Muslims. From the Immaculate Conception, to the miracles bestowed onto Jesus, to his ability to influence people and their life, the surroundings that he lived amongst him, to his relevance in our day-to-day life, that as a part of my faith in Islam, it is a faith in him, it is a faith in his way, it is a faith in his message, it is a part of my belief to honor him, to hear his name and to send blessings upon him, to be a person who is committed to the peaceful messages that he brought unto humanity, and to be a person who knows that his return brings love, hope, peace, and security to the world. And these are eternal messages that were echoed by the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad. Peace and blessings be upon him and all of the other messengers that preceded him. I want to also explain, after this historical, biographical, or summation of Islamic theology and belief with regards to Isa, or Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, how does his life influence me? Which is really important. Because Allah goes into great detail, as I've just narrated to you from the Quran, in talking to you about minute issues of His life. Words that He spoke, actions that He performed. How is this of any relevance to you and I today? Obviously there's a message there for us. Well, there is. One is that faith is a powerful emotive factor. To believe in things, when I said certain things you heard today, some of it you take in and some of it your heart wonders. You know, you analyze it as you should do in any academic setting. We're here at Warwick University. You analyze it and you try to filter it. But faith is a really powerful message. And faith in a prophet of God and faith in a message, a divine message of God, is not to be excluded from logic and reason. No, there is logical reasons in the message and the life of Isa. Some people, they say, well, why would God bother having created? Why is it so significant? A man, not having a man being with a woman to create this child. Why was that done? Why is that so significant? It's done now. You get that response. I can go, I can get, IVF treatment. I don't need a man, I don't need a husband, don't need a boyfriend for some. I can go, I can do the exact same thing that God has done. How do you weigh that with the message of Jesus? With that immaculate, that belief in that immaculate conception of the ability of God to create? Well, they're two exactly different things. God created out of nothing. And in it is an indication of the divine initial origin of all of us. He's my brother, you're my sister. We are all connected in humanity. And it's a way for Allah, for God, to show you and I our interconnectedness. And Allah says to us in the Quran in chapter 5, He says, إِنَّ مَثَلَ عِيسَى عِنْدَ اللَّهِ كَمَثَلِ آدَمَ. The example that they quote to you about the divine, He has to be divine if He was created without the influence of a man. It's got to be divine. God says the example of Jesus' birth and creation and that immaculate conception with God is the same as the creation of Adam. In fact, Adam خُلِقَ مِن تُرَابٍ. Adam was created from no man, no woman, just from the elements of the earth. And that shows you and I our initial unifying factor, our brotherhood in humanity. And the severances that we have between each other are not in the direct intention of God. Allah tells us in the Quran, كَانَ النَّاسُ أُمَّةً وَاحِدًا. Mankind were one nation, one people. But they disputed amongst each other. They diverged from each other. They didn't want to mix with each other. They didn't want to come to know one another. They segregated themselves on racial lines, on linguistic lines, on elements of color, race, ethnicity, culture. And as such you see that eternal message in the Quran, Ya ayyuhan nas, O humanity, O mankind, Inna khalaqnakum min dhakarin wa untha. We created you from a single male and a single female, وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلًا. And you diverged and we made you into nations and tribes and people and different languages, لِتَعَارَفُوا, that you come back to know one another. إِنَّ أَكْرَمَكُمْ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ أَتْقَاكُمْ. And to recognize that the one who is given merit before God is the one who has the greatest piety, who has the greatest righteousness in his conduct in dealing with others and in his relationship with his maker and his creator. So there's important elemental messages. Another important factor from the life of Isa and from his life tradition that is of direct relevance to you and I today is his willingness to lead. And I know